the beauty of the Vendée showing its brightest face today. Blue skies, and it's the young American David Zabriskie who rides through this lovely region of France in the yellow jersey. Only the third American cyclist ever to do that. They're turning on the style at the finishing line too in Les Essarts, where the riders come after a long ride today in the hot sun of 113 miles. There we are, centre left of your picture, all ready to receive the riders here in Les Essarts. Hi everybody, welcome back. Stage 2 of the Tour de France. Phil Liggett, of course, with my co-commentator Paul Show. And he once rode this race, you know, 7 times in fact. Well, yesterday rather, it was the time trial. But today, it's surely going to be a battle of the sprinters. So let me quickly explain the race for the green jersey. First introduced in the Tour de France back in 1953 to give those who couldn't claim yellow a green. We score points along the way. Intermediate sprint award points. So 3 places today, 6, 4, 2 and 1. First 3 riders over. The points vary at the finishing line depending on the severity of the stages. Today is when you get most points. There's the score at the 3 sprint points coming at 17 kilometres, 69 and 150. We've had 2 already. We'll give you those results shortly. At the finishing line today, the winner will get 35. 25th place will take 1 point. And of course, the man with the most points in Paris becomes the sprint king of the Tour de France. All right, that's how we set it up. Let's go back to 17 kilometres out today. This is the battle for the line, and the only South African in the race. He's not there yet, but he will be shortly. Robbie Hunter of Floyd Landis's Phonak team comes smoothly over the top of Fabien Weckmann and Philippe Gilbert of Belgium, and he gets the 3rd place. That was that. Then we move down the road. There's now a breakaway on, and it's still on. This is 69 kilometres. This is the Talmont, and it wasn't really a sprint, was it? But importantly enough, Bodrogi gets the bonus of 6 seconds, and wait for it, Thomas Voigtler, the star of last year, was 2nd, and Calzati, he got the 3rd. So that's the situation out on the road at the moment. We can now join the action. The peloton are just over 4 minutes behind the 4 breakaways. I'll give you their names again. Bodrogi, who incidentally is currently the new race leader on the road because his lead now is over 4 minutes. So, as we look now at the field, it's Zabriskie who wears yellow today. You can see there to the bottom of the picture. That's the latest time gap, 4:05. But 58 miles still to race, Paul. I don't think Zabriskie's too worried about it yet. The blue jersey, by the way, alongside yellow, we always tell you, don't we, the location of the big man, Lance Armstrong. Currently in 2nd place and should be riding along in the green jersey today because Zabriskie can't wear 2 jerseys.
Especially not on a day like today because it's a very hot day out in France. We've tipped the thermometer well up above 25 degrees Celsius, but it's good to see that Team CSC have decided to take control at the front end of the main field, and that, I think, tactically is going to be rather good for Lance Armstrong.
Well, it's a beautiful area today. Of course, he's got his best hat and coat on. It's a lovely, lovely day. There are big crowds here now on the mainland of France as we make our way away from the coastline of the Atlantic, racing up now towards Les Essarts. Plenty of action, of course, as they will now try to catch the top 4 riders who have made a breakaway. They've been in the lead now for something like 30 miles. There's Voigtler at the back. These 4 riders here, and we temporarily saw them anyway, have been away for about 50 kilometres now, Paul, but the time gap of over 4 minutes does mean we have a new leader of the Tour de France for the moment. There's a nice shot of Team CSC looking after the American Dave Zabriskie. I wonder how he feels today in his first Tour de France, 2nd day he's riding in yellow. 189 riders started the Tour. We lost nobody yesterday, of course, in that short time trial, although indeed it did a lot of damage in time to many of the big riders. All 21 teams that have started this race, 9 riders apiece, have all of the men still in the thick of the action. Team CSC, Paul, it's fallen to them very early on now to try and pull back those leaders because, of course, they want Zabriskie to keep yellow.
They do. It's nice to see they're not playing any tactical games of poker out there either. Bjarne Riis is a man who respects the traditions of the sport. He wants to keep the yellow jersey on his team for as long as possible, but he's also looking a long way down the road because he believes that his man Ivan Basso can ride himself into form in this race and challenge Lance Armstrong in the big mountain passes.
Well, we're approximately halfway through the race at the moment. Today, 92 kilometres or 57 miles left to go. Well, there's the gap at the moment. The peloton, by the way, is the French term for the big field, the main pack of riders. 4 minutes 04, the latest time gap at the moment. But it is the team of CSC. Plenty of time yet as Dave Zabriskie rides comfortably along behind the big team from Denmark. He's proving to be a very popular rider too, is Dave Zabriskie with the Danish. We'll take a short break. We needn't get worried yet. Welcome back. The champion of France there, Fedrigo, pulls on his tricolour jersey. It was on the shoulders last year, you may remember, of Thomas Voeckler. Well, Thomas Voeckler, who led for 10 days last year, is currently in that breakaway, 4 minutes 7 seconds ahead of the field. He's trying to do it again. 89.5 kilometres left to race today, so about 95 have passed beneath the wheels of the peloton. The red little jersey at the bottom, remember, being worn today by the American Dave Zabriskie. The blue one there is Lance Armstrong, and we'll update where he is as time goes on. Currently riding in a very confident second place overall. But these are the dangerous days of the Tour de France. You can see the size of the peloton, the narrowness of the roads here. The riders coursing the way towards Les Essarts, which in itself is a very, very precarious finish line today. And not that we want to preempt crashes. The riders, though, will have to be very, very vigilant, especially if they do catch these 4 riders currently in the lead. Well, at the moment, as the peloton run along, let's join Frankie Andreu now. He can bring us right up to date with his tech report. And Frankie, by the way, knows all about it.
This is the bike of Bobby Julich on Team CSC. In the last couple of years, Bobby has shown an increased sign of performance, and he owes a lot of it to this new chainring, the O-symmetric chainring. The difference with this chainring is that a normal chainring is round, and this one is kind of elliptical or oval, which is supposed to help increase his power for time trialing and climbing. Now, I had a chance to speak with Bobby so he could explain to us a little bit better about what this chainring is all about.
Definitely changes your pedaling stroke, but it doesn't take very long to adapt. And then once you do adapt, I think you're much more efficient at a pedaling cadence that we normally race at, which is, between 95 and 105. The benefits of the chainring on paper are up to 3 seconds per kilometer on a climb and 1 second per kilometer in a time trial. And for me personally, I feel that they're most efficient in a time trial where you're grinding around at 95 RPM, or a climb when you're between 70 and 90, because that's when you really need to get over that dead spot and be on the force part of the pedal stroke more.
Technology of the Tour. And in amongst there is Bobby Julich in the Team CSC, playing special teammate today to his countryman Dave Zabriskie. There he is, Dave. The Danish television was telling me earlier today that this boy is very, very popular in Denmark. He is making everybody laugh. He's quite a jokester. He doesn't say a lot with his words, but he does make everybody endear to him. So watch out for this man as he develops his character over this race. Well, look at this now. We've joined the feeding station here, and fittingly enough, our camera's gone up behind Team CSC. Always a dangerous moment, Paul. You've got to be very, very alert here.
You certainly do. A lot of crashes happen here. I don't think it's going to be too dangerous today because they're going through at a very sensible pace. It's on the days when they go through at 55 or 60 kilometers an hour that you really do have to be right on the edge of your saddle, on the edge of your nerves. And anybody who wants to try and win the Tour would have to try and go through this point in the first 15 or 20 places, because I've seen some dramatic accidents happen in this zone.
Now, there's no rule that says you can't stop and take your bag in a more orderly manner, but of course you do have to catch up.
Well, there's no rule that says you can't stop and have a picnic at the side of the road either.
Indeed, indeed. Yes, well, the riders are safely through. There's Lance Armstrong ferreting in his bag. He's in the green jersey today because although he was only second yesterday, and Zabriskie owns the green jersey on points, he will actually can't wear 2 because he's got the yellow on. Now, just over 2 hours in the saddle, and we're just about 84, 85 kilometres. That's about 52 miles from the finish. It'll be time soon to whip up the boys, won't it, Paul, and start bringing them down again.
It certainly will. They will organise themselves. They'll be waiting for the teams of the sprinters to come forward, and I think Team CSC have done a very good job. You can just see Jan Ulrich there, and I just caught a quick glimpse of Alexander Vinokourov in his new jersey, a jersey he's been waiting for about a week to get hold of, because he's been currently just crowned the champion of Kazakhstan. At the back end of the peloton is the champion of Estonia, and that is Jan Kirsipuu.
Yes, and he's been on the floor today. He crashed about half an hour ago, but he was unhurt and he got back quite quickly. Fourth placed Jan Ulrich in the 2004, 12th only yesterday. His words in the press this morning: "I am devastated. I was 100%. I can't blame the crash," he said, "but I can't understand it. I didn't go well." Well, that's Jan Ulrich. Now he's got to find the answers. He's got 3 weeks to do it, and he's always had a great performance over the years. So there they are. The peloton are having their moment of food. We'll take a short break as they pass through the feeding station. Please join us for the last action. Remember, the sprinters are to catch up yet. Welcome back to our coverage of the Tour de France, live action, and of course the crowd as big, if not bigger than ever. This is a very popular area of France for holidays, and we're right in the centre of the holiday period now, and the Tour de France has the road to itself. So the field looking as though they're beginning to whip up the pace now, but yesterday Floyd Landis had a great ride, didn't he, finishing 6th. So I think we can go now and catch up with Frankie Andreu talking to Floyd Landis before the start today.
Floyd, very fast time trial out there, obviously quicker than any other time trial that the Tour has had. Were you able to turn the gear that you liked?
Yeah, it was the gear that I liked. Clearly it wasn't quite the gear Zabriskie had, but no, I was happy with it.
How did you feel, and are you happy with kind of your ranking right now? Not very far off. You did a very good time trial.
Yeah, I'm satisfied with the way it went. I generally am inconsistent at prologues or opening time trials, so I was happy with the way it went. It's good.
First week, obviously it's not too windy today, but it could change. Kind of your team plan, staying out of trouble.
Yeah, I don't think we're a team that needs to take responsibility for the race. Obviously Lance is here to win the race, and his team will work, and some other teams, Team Mobile, and guys who have made it clear they're racing for the race. So it's not our job to control it, so we'll do the best we can to not get in trouble, like you said.
All right, good luck today. Thanks.
Thanks, Frankie.
Thank you, Floyd.
I think, in other words, Floyd is saying, I'm in a great position now, and other guys can do the hard work as we head off toward the team time trial in a couple of days' time. The field now, there's the latest gap, 50 miles to race, 4:15 is the gap. Well, just on 8 kilometres to go now, Paul Thomas Voigtler, and he right well smiled. He's doing himself the world of good here. The Bouygues Telecom team, by the way, which is the national telephone company of France, is based here in the Vendée. So that's another reason he's in the break, I guess.
Well, the team is based here as well as the team that was created originally as the Vendée U team, a development team for amateur riders in this part of France by Jean-René Bernadotte. He then was able to help them to turn professional. They were originally called the Bonjour team, then the Brioche La Boulangère, and now exactly the same structure has become this new team from the region, and they're very much supported around here. I think the great thing about Jean-René Bernadotte is he's actually developed the majority of the riders on his team. 21 of the riders out of the 28 roster have come through Jean-René's program of looking for young French riders to develop.
I admire that team. I admire any team that can manage to make up a squad of totally the national riders, and it's great for the country and the sport of cycling. But the French do need a future winner of the Tour. At the moment, they don't seem to have one. But who knows? He might come along. There might be another Dave Zabriskie in the making somewhere amongst the French riders today. But there he is, Thomas Voigtler. He got the French title last year. He lost it the other week, but that's okay. You don't tend to win those titles too often. He is a big winner, and he's certainly improved in his status in the eyes of the French public since that time 1 year ago when he led for 10 days in the Tour de France.
Calzat is an interesting character to be in this breakaway. He's a man who switched across here from his RAGT team at the end of last season after a very good performance winning that Tour de l'Avenir, and here getting his chance to ride in the Tour de France. That main field, though, Phil, keeping themselves very much close together.
There's the massive field there now as they're starting now to they're going to have to start thinking about it as we head up to what are quite narrow roads towards the finish, and Les Essarts. but they're waiting for their moments to pounce. 4 minutes is not a lot if they work hard at it. Well, don't forget, in the year 2000, 16 strangers were stranded on a deserted island for 39 days. It changed television forever. Now Survivor lives on OLN. See the first alliances, the first tribal councils, the first betrayals. Watch the first unforgettable season. Grab your torches, head back to camp. Survivor lives on OLN. See it from the beginning, July 24th. The concentration here of Bobby Julich and his elliptical chain set, I am sure. And right behind him, Dave Zabriskie. They'll protect him like a big mother bee. Now they'll keep him out of the wind. They'll push him in safe parts of the peloton. They'll always have teammates around him. He is the principal rider on the squad right now. And the team, who are basically all foreign to David, Danish, etc., they think he's one of the great guys on the squad. So they're going to look after him as long as possible. I suspect their tactics will be to try and keep Dave Zabriskie in yellow all of the way across northern France till we enter Germany, which is a 10-day journey. And if he stays as long as that, he's going to become as famous as Thomas Voigtler did last year. But that, of course, is a big ask and a long way to go. So the field continue en route towards Les Essarts. And they're not in too much of a hurry just yet, but they still have nearly 2 hours of racing. Dave Zabriskie can still keep yellow. We'll take a break. Welcome back. There is the Atlantic coastline. Next stop, America, as the riders now turn their back on this side of France for a long time as they race in a shortly to start west-east direction rather, as they swing inland towards the finish today in Les Essarts. Then the journey across northern France will commence over the next week or so. Doesn't it look lovely? It's a beautiful day. Well, it looks a bit bleak out there if the rain was here, but it is very warm today. The weather forecast, as usual, not quite as accurate as most countries' weather forecasters. They did say it was going to be overcast, but it's a beautiful day today and very, very warm. Nearly 2¼ hours the rides have been racing now. And it's time, they're probably saying, to start whipping up the speed to try and bring back those 4 breakaways. The breakaways, by the way, David Cañada, Thomas Voigtler, Laszlo Bodrogi and Sylvain Calzati. They are 4 guys with quality. Let's not make no mistake about this. They're not just 4 opportunists, and they might have the strength to hold them off. 75 kilometers to go, and there's a chance, but you don't think so, Paul, do you?
Well, not really. Not when you start to see the sprinters teams moving up to the front. And of course, if they look as if they're going to fail, they will always get help from Team CSC, because with that advantage, it's only a 2-second advantage over Lance Armstrong, but it's a massive advantage over everybody else in the field. I think Team CSC will try and keep Dave Zabriskie in that yellow jersey for as long as possible, and certainly they should be able to do it right up until the team time trial.
Looking down there, though, the board on the left is actually showing the big pack here, the peloton, the actual time gap between the 4 front runners and the pack. They show the same board, of course, to the riders up front. And the riders themselves will have little earpieces so that their sporting directors in the following cars will also transmit those time gaps to each individual rider. And so they know exactly where they are situated at the moment. And that's around 46 miles in old terms to go.
That's in old terms. 76 miles, 76 kilometers in new money. There's another team mixing it up at the front right now. It's the team of Robbie McEwen. We won't see Robbie till the very end. And Robbie must be in pretty fine form right now. Like a lot of other riders, had a slight break after the Giro d'Italia, then starting to prepare himself for the Tour de France. And just looking down there, you can see he sent 1 or 2 riders from Team Lotto up to the front end of the group as well.
Well, the pace being stamped on there. I think the message has gone out now, and you can well work out now that these riders are going to find themselves under pressure. Excitement, adrenaline starting to course through the veins now as the pressure has gone on. Well, there are a couple of riders down there who do wear heart rate monitors, and I'm sure their heart rate is beating rather well today, about 166 beats a minute, and the riders probably racing at the moment at circa 50-55 kilometers an hour. That's about 40 miles an hour. Daniele Nardello, another man who will be giving away secrets to the computers with his heart rate, which should be around 166. So pretty much the sort of speed we would expect, and at 52k, that's a good sign. They're now beginning to chase down Patrice Alguin is having a reasonable, restful ride at the moment with 136 beats per minute.
That's pretty low, and that's very comfortable. And every athlete has a different top-end heart rate. And in fact, I was reading just the other day that Lance Armstrong's top-end heart rate is 201 at maximum, but normally it would work out at around about 185 to 190, which is much higher than the average Joe.
Yes, well, in fact, Armstrong, when his heart is at rest, is a very low 32, 33 beats per minute. That's a sign of a very, very fit man. So as the race continues now, there is an urgency now. T. Voigtler on his down tube there, and that is Thomas Voigtler in the breakaway, but the gap is starting to come down. Okay, well, let's now take a look at the Honda highlight of the day. And it all happened, of course, yesterday. And the time trial, that is some highlight. Lance Armstrong passing Jan Ullrich. First time he's been caught in his career. Didn't even look at him. Ullrich certainly looked at Lance as he raced up to the line. Zabriskie, of course, was a second big highlight. He was 3 hours before Lance started finishing the time trial. It was a long wait before he knew he won it by just 2 seconds. And he's got the yellow jersey today. All right, well, that's a look at the Honda highlight of the day. There we are, the flatlands, the mussel beds, the oyster beds of the Atlantic coastline here. Remember, we're up by the entrance of the Loire out of the Atlantic. That's the longest river at 1,300 plus kilometers here in France. We'll take a break. It may seem here at the Tour de France, but there's no time to make hay because the chase is now on to try and bring back the 4 breakaways on this second day of the Tour as we go from Chalon, where Jan Kersipou was fated at the start this morning because he was the winner the last time the race went to Chalon, and that was back in 1999. The 4 leaders, Sylvain Chavanel, David Cagnada at nearly 70 kilometers to go, Laszlo Bedrogi, and the other man in the group is Sylvain Calzati, Thomas Voigtler. These are the boys now who are trying to hold off. The inevitable chase is on. They're looking very concentrated. They might believe that they can hold them off, but somehow the sprinters usually time the catch just when the moment is right. Let's not forget, though, today is a rather special day for David Zabriskie. Only the 3rd American ever to pull on the maillot jaune. And he won the time trial yesterday, and now he's having his first day in that golden fleece. There's the latest gap, 3:50. The overall situation after the time trial, 20:51, an incredible ride by Zabriskie. Only Armstrong anywhere near him, lost it by 2 seconds. This coming to us by the Bank of America. George Hincapie did a great ride for 4. Floyd Landers, can you believe that result? It's got to be the best result ever by an American as a nation. 4 riders in the top 6 in the time trial, and 3 different teams represented there. All right, let's go back to Frankie Andreu and see what David Zabriskie had to say about that.
It's your first experience with all the crowds and all the melee of all the cameras and the photographers kind of going after you. How are you feeling with all of that?
It's a little exciting, a little stressful, but I don't mind it.
Sometimes you hear about guys, they sleep with the yellow jersey or they're having dinner with it on. Anything special like that last night? Besides, did you have some champagne also?
Yeah, we had champagne. I didn't sleep with it. I slept in the buff.
The plan for today, obviously you have the yellow jersey, the team will be protecting you. A little bit nervous kind of being in that leader's position? I mean, it's very new for you.
Yeah, I'm not the leader of the team. Ivan Basso's the leader, and I think this is a better position to be in than other positions.
All right, thank you, David.
Yeah.
Yes, well, that's certainly true. He could have been last. But I have to say that Zabriskie is not a man of many words. But according to the journalists and the team I've spoken to, they say he's one heck of a good guy. And he makes them laugh all of the time. Off camera, he is an extremely amusing character. So there's the field, all packing together. 67 kilometers to go now. Well, I must say the pictures are beautiful from the helicopter today. And look at the length of the peloton now, Paul. So the pressure is on now. life at the back is not easy, even when you're in the big field, is it? Well, you should know. You were there.
I was very often at the back, but on the flat stages like this, Phil, you have to give me a bit of credit. I used to ride at the front in the top 15 or 20 places.
I remember you once sitting in 5th place overall in the Tour de France.
Do you really? That's impressive. That was a long time ago. That was 1978, actually, dear boy. Well, if you look at the length of the main field, you know that there's a big pressure and a big organisation at the front end of that pack, and I'm absolutely convinced that, sadly to say, because I appreciate the attackers, but I think they're going to get wiped out.
Well, hats off to Thomas Voigtler, because a big escape that he got last year, which gave him the race lead for 10 days. Normally the big pack keep a close eye on those boys. They don't allow them to do it twice, and maybe that will be the case today. But Voigtler, there he is, right of our camera, and working very hard with Calzati here now driving through. Sylvain Calzati, I think, is a real top rider for the future. And he's had a good season last year. He won the Tour de l'Avenir, finished 71st in his first Tour de France, so he knows the way round now, and he's enjoying the occasion again today. This is the wild card team, of course, that brought in AG2R, because all the rest are officially Pro Tour teams. There is Voigtler, and all of the Pro Tour teams, of course, are the ones who must ride all of the major tours of the year. For that privilege, they pay a lot of money, but they also get a lot of riding. All right, well, as we say goodbye for a moment this time, here's our Subway trivia question for you. Yesterday was a toughie, I thought. Well, this time, over the past 6 years of winning the Tour de France, approximately how many miles have Lance and the rest of the field covered? Is it A, 6,000 miles, B, 9,000 miles, C, 13,000 miles, or D, 16,000 miles? The answer when we come back after the break. And I have to say, I don't know the answer to this one, so I'll have a little look at the card while you are away. Welcome back. Well, Subway Tour trivia. Here we are. Over the past 6 years of winning the Tour de France, approximately how many miles have Lance and the rest of the field covered? There's the question. 6, 9, 13 or 16,000 miles? Everybody knew it was C. 13,000 miles is the answer. And if you were listening to our tease yesterday, then you will have got the answer for today. Looking down from our helicopter, the Trek aerial view here, brought to you by Trek Lucky 7 Sweepstakes, and that's another lovely shot they've chosen, I have to say. The Tour de France in its entirety, surrounded by the press motorcyclists, the bike riders coursing their way across the Vendée. They're chasing these four, and these four are getting a little bit agitated here, as action now is getting underway. They know they can't survive if they don't really go a little bit quicker. Everybody enjoying a glorious day on the Vendée and enjoying the passage of the Tour de France.
And the man moving to the back there was Benjamin Noval, the man who last year got himself dropped off the back in the team time trial.
He did, and finished in tears, of course, which was extremely sad. He felt he'd let the team down. The team actually made a point of waiting for him at the finishing line and reminded him he didn't let the team down. He was a young rider. They put him back in the squad, so that's how much they think of him, because this is probably the strongest team, I think, that Lance has ever had in the Tour de France. So we'll see.
Quick glimpse there of Vladimir Karpets, not for very long, the man who won the white jersey competition last year as the best young rider in the Tour de France. He currently occupies second place in that competition. He finished 9th yesterday. Armstrong enjoying his day in the green jersey. He wore the green jersey last year on the first stage as well, because he finished second in the opening day's prologue time trial. But I don't think he'd be wearing it at the end of the day, because I'm quite sure that there are a lot more points, in fact, on the flatter road stages like this than there are for the individual time trial. 15 points for the win yesterday, 35 points at stake in the green jersey points race this afternoon, plus six points available on 3 occasions out on the open road, so it's much more likely to be on the shoulders of a sprinter.
Well, just looking to the helicopter shot here, the heat shimmering off the exhaust systems of the chopper. That's also a heat haze, I think, today, because this is a pretty nice day and slightly better than was forecast. And we're expecting this sort of weather now as the race goes on. Time trial will come on stage 4. That is the team time trial. The course stays pretty flat. Lance Armstrong will look forward, you know, to that team time trial. The weather will say probably a little bit partially cloudy, but they have been saying that today, and today we have a full sun day and everybody enjoying. The temperature is going to be around about 75 degrees Fahrenheit or 23, 24 Celsius.
A lot of the riders will keep their fingers crossed that it doesn't rain on the day of the team time trial, because in the past we've seen some nasty accidents. The team time trial last year was run off in rainy conditions, but that didn't dampen the spirits of the then US Postal Service team, because they took out the overall victory, and they'll be hoping to do that again here if they can. Although they're going to get some serious challenges this year, because a lot of people believe that Team CSC and Team Phonak could rival the top American squad.
Looking at the face here of Laszlo Bodrogi, there aren't many great bike riders come from Hungary, but he certainly is a great bike rider. He's just over 28 years of age now. Comes to this race with a June win in the overall classification of the Tour of Luxembourg. Didn't win any of the daily stages, but did the best time for the whole distance, and that, of course, is what counts. He's been the national time trial champion of Hungary since the year 2000, so he knows what it's like, and he did a great time trial yesterday.
He certainly did. He's a big, strong bike rider. That's one of the best time trial performances he's put in the last couple of years, actually, because his forte when he turned professional was riding individual time trials, and he's, I think, really matured quite a bit since he's moved across here to the Crédit Agricole squad. He's been an aggressive rider. He's been out on the attack, and he's probably looking now to see just how far it is to go to the finish. Well, it's around about 37 miles or 65 kilometers.
Well, just looking now at the village. Roads closed, of course. Where has all the crowd gone? They've probably rushed off around to our right when the riders are due to come through. The Tour de France continues to make its way towards Les Essarts. We'll be there for the big finish. I hope you will too. The world's toughest and often cruelest sporting events, the Tour de France, today making its way towards Les Essarts. And the riders getting closer by the pedal rev. The breakaways are still clear. The gap is holding. The peloton, though, is now beginning to chase. A lot of driving being done by the Belgian, the boys in blue. That's the Quick Step team, because they carry Tom Bonen on their squad. The peloton contains, of course, the yellow jersey worn today by David Zabriskie, and he must feel absolutely elated today as he continues his way. The riders themselves, though, are going to have to sort this out, as we see the green jersey there of Lance Armstrong, and that's a good clue because we can explain the leaders' jerseys to you now. Lance Armstrong in green today as the sprint leader. There he is, but in fact it's owned by David Zabriskie, who won yesterday. The yellow jersey for the race on time, the green jersey for the most consistent daily finisher. Zabriskie at the moment owns both. Fabian Cancellara, the white jersey, is for the rookie of the race, the riders under 26 years of age. Cancellara is the leader there. And the polka dot jersey, well, we haven't had any mountains yet, so that will remain headless for a while longer.
Just to try and get themselves a win.
Just seeing the riders here. There's a nice shot of Lance Armstrong. You see, even Paul, when he's got no interest in winning this sort of a stage, he keeps out of trouble by riding at the sharp end.
Well, if you cast your mind back to the Tour de France since 1999 there, you can just glimpse the wearer of #1, Lance Armstrong. He's probably ridden nearly all of the Tour de France in the first 15 or 20 places, except on one occasion, if you remember, in the mountains, going over the climbs on the way to the Alpe d'Huez, when we certainly thought he was under pressure, and so did Jan Ullrich on that occasion. But at the end of the day, he got himself the victory on this stage up to the Alpe d'Huez.
Just see the little wire there. He's actually talking on his radio, this rider, just by squeezing the on-off switch. Little earpiece so he can talk back to the team management in the cars. And what he's probably just heard is the gap is now 3 minutes and 5 seconds.
Well, that's Brad McGee. And McGee has said very openly that he wants to look after his teammate Baden Cook here this afternoon. If you're going to get a lead-out man, well, he's not a bad lead-out man to get, and he'll be a little bit upset, I think, by his performance yesterday, because he was nurturing dreams of winning the opening day's time trial and getting himself the first leader's jersey. So he'll try and do something special, and he'll turn the books around if he can to try and give Baden Cook a very good lead-out on this run in towards the finish.
Everybody seems to want to win the first road race stage of the Tour de France, so we can expect a real shoulder-to-shoulder tussle if they catch these four riders. Roger Leger, the director of Crédit Agricole, comes up and will give his rider here, Bedrogi, his new signing, a little bit of encouragement. He still remains the race leader on the road because he's recouped all the time lost to Zabriskie in that time trial yesterday. But you've got to have the time gains at the finishing line, not on the route towards the finishing line. So that was his situation, by the way. He's fifth overall, wasn't he? He was 59 seconds behind. He's now 3 minutes ahead. So he's got a couple of minutes in hand.
Couple of minutes in hand. Just caught a quick glimpse there of Tommy Vauclair. And today's finishing time, by the way, is in the town of Les Essarts, which just happens to be the home base of the Bouygues Telecom squad.
Yes, and Jean-René Bernadotte is the manager of that. He also is actually a Vendée person, so they've got every reason to succeed. There is a Vauclair. The crowd will see him, cheer him, they'll recognise him. The man that led for 10 days the Tour de France last year, and in the end I think everybody in the race was cheering for him, because on one brilliant day, a defiance in the mountains, when he refused to give up his yellow jersey to Lance Armstrong, he survived the day by just 22 seconds, and the clock was counting down when he finished. And Lance's first words were, if a guy suffers like that, he deserves to stay leader of the Tour. I thought that was very magnanimous of him.
Well, he was the first man to congratulate him, because they were both in the tribune at the time waiting for the presentations. But that was a great performance by Vauclair, and I think that's what won him the hearts of the French public.
Well, as we look out across the town, well, we're leaving the town very shortly. We're still looking for one called Les Essarts. There's the cars parked down there as we're getting ready for the riders to come through. There they come on the moment. So don't forget, if you're looking for more behind-the-scenes tour coverage, sign up for the Daily Tour. It's an exclusive partnership between OLN and Active.com. You'll receive daily email updates, insightful commentary, a chance to win great cycling prizes. Get the free daily newsletter by visiting either OLNTV.com or Active.com. Do it now. So the race goes on, 3 minutes 5 seconds. We're still waiting for those boys to come back into the fold before the sprinters can have their day. They may be foiled yet. We'll take a break. Welcome back. Disappearing there, we saw by the motorcyclists, 3 minutes is now the official gap between the four frontrunners and the peloton. They are coming back, but they're coming back ever so slowly, I think. Bedrogi must know now 50 kilometres, 31 miles from the finish. It looks to me as though they might not even survive to the third sprint of the day here at Chateau Guibert. Valuable 6 seconds bonus would await Laszlo Bedrogi if he could win that one. The 3-minute time gap, which is the latest now, Paul, that we have had here from these boys up front. I think you're right, with still, 30 miles, 50 kilometres to race, they should wrap it up in the last 10 or 15 kilometres.
Well, theoretically, the main field should very easily be able to wipe out a 5-minute advantage, and you can see the organisation at the front here. There's the team of Robbie McEwen, Team Lotto de Vitamont. The team of Baden Cook is there in the white jerseys, Française de Jeu. Discovery Channel not doing too much, but being present at the front end of the group to make sure that they keep their man just in the green jersey there, Lance Armstrong, at the front of the race and away from any possibility of being involved in an accident.
That's right. They just put the Team Discovery riders around him. They boxed their own team captain in so that nobody can get near him and perhaps have a fall and knock him off. And that's why we very, very rarely ever hear of Lance Armstrong falling off in the Tour de France. The 6-time winner, looking for his 7th before he says goodbye to the sport of professional cycling, always knows where to position himself in the big peloton. Servais Knaven off to the right. He's always the early pacemaker for Quick-Step. They're trying to steer Tom Bonan towards victory, but the other teams too believe they have the sprinter now. You know, this is the Vendée, and it's a beautiful region of France as the riders continue to make their way. It's a long way, the journey around France. It takes them 3 weeks today, you know, before they actually arrive up in Paris. An awful lot of pitfalls along the way, but for the moment, they're turning their back now on the Vendée coastline of the Atlantic, and they're racing inland to the finish. The sea now is probably out of sight for the rest of the tour before we get over back on this coast when we come out of the Pyrenees.
Yeah, but what a flat stage it has been here this afternoon. Just a little bit of a pimple down towards the end, and there is actually a 4th category climb on the run in towards the finish, and somebody, some brave rider, might just try and use that as a launch pad to a solo victory. But at the moment, they've got other things in the back of their minds, and what they are looking for is to try and pull back those 4 leaders. They're doing a good job because they've got the gap now well inside of 3 minutes, and you know, we have got the ability to monitor the heart rates of 1 or 2 of the riders out on the course, and in fact 1 or 2 riders like Patrice Halgan are cruising along in the main field currently, because he's showing a heart rate of around about 135 beats a minute. But Daniele Nardello riding at the front end of the main field, it's a little bit different for Nardello because his heart rate is up at 154, not yet at maximum, because when these guys get up to a maximum, you're looking at about 180, so the pace is not fully on yet.
You're absolutely right. Don't forget, Nardello's a bit older than poor Patrice Halgan, so his heart's bound to be going a bit faster, isn't it?
How's yours going?
Mine's beating 200 plus. Well, we're around about 47 kilometres, which is 30 miles now from the finish. The 4 leaders still here. I hope you're not just joining us, but if you are, David Cañada, Thomas Voigtler, Laszlo Bedrogi, Sylvain Calzati are the men who have been out in front for much of the stage today. Very early on, 14 riders got away. The big pack thought that was too many, so they chased them down, and then the 4 riders managed to get away. Little view there of Roger Leger, the team manager, once looked after Chris Boardman. Indeed, when Chris Boardman rode on this team, it was called GAN in those days, but Roger Leger was the boss who looked after Chris at that time, Chris being a British champion and a world and Olympic champion. We're looking now at Voigtler as he drives on and enjoys his day in front. I don't think it's going to be much longer in front, I have to suggest, at the moment, because the boys are beginning to eat into the lead. Last check we got, it was 2 minutes and 50 seconds, and it's come down very slightly on that. 131st overall. He didn't enjoy the time trial, Thomas, yesterday. He can build on that. There's a little flashback for you. We suddenly put him in a yellow jersey, but that was when he became a star of French cycling and indeed the French people. They love to see one of their own in yellow, and nobody can fault them for that. And he really did ride so well when he pulled on that maillot jaune. Well, this summer it's all about appearance, tenderness and taste at the All-Star Barbecue Showdown. 8 barbecue pros travel to 8 towns to compete against top amateur grillers for cash and the coveted All-Star title. From the rub to ribs, who will make it to the final showdown? It's OLN's sizzling new series, the All-Star Barbecue Showdown, premiering, I can't say it, but there you are, you know what I mean, this July, only on OLN, of course. The peloton are back together. They're not huddling together for warmth today. It's a beautiful warm day. They're just trying to work out who is going to do the work and bring back the 4 leaders. We'll take a break. Welcome back to our coverage here on OLN as the riders continue to course across the area of the Vendée. Happy days for David Zabriskie. This is Andreas Cloden here, second in the Tour de France last year, and what a disastrous day it was for him yesterday. He finished 51st in the time trial, losing 2 minutes and 1 second in just those 12 miles of racing. Latest time gap, looking at that, 2 minutes 30. They're coming down pretty quickly now. They'll hang in as long as they can, I think.
2.5 minutes now.
Yes, he can't survive now at 2.5 minutes, but the road does become a little bit undulating. We're looking for Chateau Guibert at the moment, which will come at the 150-kilometre point today. That's the third and final sprint point. The riders change direction a little bit now. There's not a lot of wind out today, but it will obviously change when they change. But it's a nice gentle breeze. They'll cool them down. They'll be pleased about that. Calzati is the rider's second from the front, second from the two riders we can see in our picture here right now. Voigtler is second, taking on the fluid.
Voigtler's looking pretty nervous, actually. He's very nervously moving up to the front every time he can. He doesn't want to miss a turn in this breakaway group at all, and I think the important thing for him is to try and keep it as fast as possible, just to try and survive, if they can, to the finish in Les Essarts. Calzati, 3 minutes down overall.
Looking now at a head-on shot of the peloton. The boys in blue and white are trying to shut this down. 2:15 is the latest time check that we have. They're coming down pretty quickly now. The road formation is, since we left the coastline, we've gone on to the undulations of the Vendée now as we head inland in an easterly direction. And we expect now the riders who believe they've got the man to finish off with the stage win, then those teams are going to start putting men at the front. It should tumble quite quickly now.
Just a quick glimpse, Eric Decker riding at the front. He too is a rider who thought he was going to perform well yesterday in the individual time trial. A lot of riders, I think, very disappointed by their performances, Phil, in that time trial yesterday. A long time trial which opened up big gaps. But what I think it'll do over the first week of racing here is, in fact, open up the attacks, because a lot of riders can be given a certain amount of freedom because of the time lost in the first day's time trial.
Well, they've been going just on 3 hours now, Paul, and you know, they've got just about an hour, probably about 57 minutes still to race to the line. So they've got to do something about this breakaway in the next 15-20 minutes or so, and they know it, of course. Looking at the back of the field here now, Rodrigo. So as we look across the lovely area of the Vendée, let's just take a little bit of time out now and enjoy Lance's legacy. The man has won 6 tours. Since Lance Armstrong joined the professional ranks in 1992, he has redefined cycling, athletic achievement, and the genuine potential of the human spirit. His story is the stuff of fiction. A brash but spectacular one-day racer is attacked by cancer and given almost no chance to live. He survives and returns to the sport he loves, better than ever before, and wins the world's biggest cycling race 6 times, becoming perhaps the greatest Tour champion ever. But Lance's place in cycling goes well beyond his win totals. He's changed the way you race and prepare for the Tour de France. Since 1999, winning the Tour has been his year-round obsession, reshaping the entire cycling landscape with revolutionary training techniques, cutting-edge technology, and unique team and race strategy. But all this circumstance ignores the real pomp. No cyclist wants to win more than he does. It is one thing, though, to develop a plan, and quite another to execute it. From the lonely training rides in December to the dog days of July, Lance Armstrong has always had more desire than anyone on the planet. And while this may not make him the greatest cyclist ever, Eddy Merckx and Bernard Hinault are still ahead of him for that title, Lance Armstrong may yet become the most influential cyclist ever. His accomplishments on the road are just a small part of his influence on the sport. Lance has introduced a whole new generation of Americans to the Tour and to cycling, and his real legacy might be legions of young people training to be the next Lance Armstrong.
They all know.
And indeed, what an inspiration. There will never be a story quite like that. Well, while we were watching that, the cameras weren't there either, but there was a little bit of a shunt out on the highway. I think it was Sergei Gonchar. That's Yannick Tombak, who's also been delayed by the fall. Let's see if we can show you those pictures now. We're out on these are live pictures, of course. This is the shunt. Somebody in the middle's gone down. I think it was Sergei Gonchar on the left there, that's for sure. He's just sat down on the road. He'll be up. Former world time trial champion. He's leader of the Domino Acanti team. Well, it was the left-hand corner that did it. Everybody had to slow down, and somebody didn't slow down quite well enough. There's Yannick Tombak. He's up and running as well, the Estonian. And looks like his teammate here is giving him a hand out as well now, and that's Bessie. It just shows you how careful you have to be. These boys are going to have to waste up a lot of energy now to rejoin the field. They should get back safely. It's a little bit ragged at the back end of the peloton, but when you see it from the helicopter like this, another left-hander, boys, take it easy. It does make you realise just how many bike riders there are in this race.
A lot of bike riders, 189 at the start of the Tour de France this year, just a few less than last year. The organisation actually did have the ability to incorporate 22 teams, but they felt a little bit happier just having 20 teams plus one team of wildcards. These are the chasers. This is Bessie and Yannick Tombak trying to get themselves back on, and the fact that they've now just made contact with the convoy of team cars behind indicates to me, as an ex-pro, that they're going to make contact.
Yes, they should get through now. Bessie's in a spot of bother, but he'll be okay in a minute. Here's another little bit of help on the right. So nobody turns too much of an eye towards the team cars pacing riders who've had pure bad luck, because in this race you just never know when the crash will happen. Let's hope it doesn't happen too often. Welcome back. The Tour de France inside 25 miles from the finish. The gap inside 2 minutes to the 4 leaders, and we are heading towards Les Essarts before we finally say goodbye to the Vendée, where the Tour has started this year. Last time it started here, we were at the Puy de Fou, and that was in 1999, the beginning of the reign of one certain Lance Armstrong. The peloton at 1:55. That's where the yellow jersey is located, the yellow jersey being the leader of the Tour de France. The beauty of the scenery, and of course Lance Armstrong wearing a green jersey today instead of his usual Team Discovery colours, because he was second in the race yesterday, and Zabriskie, the leader, is in yellow. All right, well, as the race continues, it's looking now as though I'm the voice of doom today, because I don't think they are going to make it at all. Setting the pace at the front there is Bedrogi. All right, Cyclism 2, the ride of a lifetime. OLN's exclusive coverage of the 2005 Tour de France continues with Stage 3, live tomorrow morning, 8:30 Eastern. Expanded primetime coverage at 8 Eastern and 9 Pacific. Only, of course, on OLN. Well, this is going to be a great Tour de France. I will guarantee that this year, because we've seen a good start, and we're going to see riders want to reclaim the time they've lost in that time trial yesterday. We're back with the leaders here. Well, they've never really given up. They've always felt, haven't they, Paul, that they could do it. But you're right, they're not going to survive now, because these 4 breaking away. There was a break of 14 got away early on. Then 4 riders were left out front. They've gone into a lead of around about 4¼ minutes, but now it is in the descendancy. There's a nice view of the race director's car, best seat in the house. That's where the VIPs get the finest view of the riders. A little bit of a chat here at the back. And I was just wondering, it looks as though it's Sébastien Joly, but this is also here Fabien Cancellara wearing the rookie jersey. He was the winner of the prologue time trial when we started the race in Liège, Belgium last year. And he did a good ride yesterday, but he became the best rider in the white jersey competition, which is for the best rookie of the race. The line continues. I don't know what Cancellara's doing back there, I must say, because the pace is getting a little bit hot now as the long, thin line, as they start now to be dragged out, and Cancellara having to hang at the back. Is this man going to win? He did it twice last year, Tom Bonen of Belgium. He's still in the hunt with his toothache. We'll be back. Well, we're looking now at the legs here of the men in the peloton, and I think these are the 4 leaders. In fact, the gap's got to be tumbling now. They're heading towards Chateau Guibert, which will take them to 150 kilometers of 181, and they must be close to that last speed. They've just about survived. Good sign at the back. Still got plenty of team cars and motorbikes and press in there, which means that the referees feel the gap is not coming down that quickly just yet. Just look at the face here of you see the tricolor stripes on his sleeve. That indicates a former champion of his country. That's Vogler. There's the peloton absolutely flying along now. You can bet your life 35 miles an hour at least for the main field here. They know how to race when they get it organised. I wonder if our helicopter can just tip up a little bit. We might well see the leaders up there. Perhaps not. Just on 32 miles to go. These are the lakes that we are now going as we head towards the third and final sprint of the day. The boys back in the main field probably won't contest it because all the points that matter in that green jersey competition, there's 6-4-2 available. First three men only get it, and it's going to be the breakaway who survive, at least for that. Didier Roos sitting here near the back of the field, and he's rider 141. And these are the boys from Bouygues Telecom. Well, Voigtler is their teammate, and he's up front. These boys enjoying a bit of a free ride today, just now.
Walter Beneteau, best Frenchman overall at the moment, because he was in 24th place yesterday. Not anything really very much to write home about for the French, but here's the sign, just around about 1,000 meters now to go for the third and final sprint of the day.
Now, these four were away at the previous sprint at Talmont and Bedrogi. They never actually contested it. Bedrogi took the 6 seconds, which is very important to him because he lies 5th overall, and for a long while today he's been the virtual new leader of the Tour de France. Voigtler and Calzati. Bedrogi started 5th at 59 seconds off the race lead. He's had more than that time back while he's been in this breakaway. It looks as though Voigtler, though, is getting a little bit more excited this time. But watch out for Bedrogi. We're looking here at the first sprint at Oriou. And there's the result, by the way. As I said earlier, Robert Hunter was the winner of the first sprint, Weckman and Gilbert. Watch the sprint here as they start, because it's Cañada who's opened up. Second sprint was won by Bedrogi, Voigtler, Calzati, and as I say, they didn't contest that, you know, but now are they going to contest this, or are they going to allow David Cañada to go over the line first? The arrival here at the finishing line of the caravan, as you probably can hear, as they come in approximately 45 minutes before the race itself arrives.
Well, that 6-second time bonus that Bedrogi got at the second time sprint of the day has moved him up into equal third place in the overall classification, up alongside Alexander Vinokourov. So a couple more seconds here wouldn't go amiss, because that would move him exactly into second place in the overall classification, which is pretty important over the opening days because it keeps your team car up at the front end of the race convoy. And I don't think there's going to be that much of a sprint, actually.
No, they've done it again. Bedrogi, the man to gain. They've not attacked him. He's taken it. Bedrogi has got it. And in second place was Calzati. So that means 12 seconds comes off the time of Bedrogi today. If they finish all together in that big field, it means he will now be in third place, 47 seconds behind Zabriskie, and just behind Lance Armstrong by 45 seconds.
Well, that'll be good for him, because I think they will get caught down towards the end, but a man like Laszlo Bedrogi will not get dropped before the finish line, so he should move up to third place in the overall classification. And it's a bit of a strange opening week to the Tour this year, because the sprinters won't be fighting out for the time bonuses to try and get themselves the overall lead. They'll be just battling it out for glory and the green jersey.
Easy to pick out the maillot jaune, isn't it? We saw him go through there, not far away from the front. Those four leaders now surely are not going to stay away much longer. I have to say that Zabriskie is riding like a mature professional who's done this every July for the last 3 or 4 years, because he knows exactly where to ride in the peloton, and he's on a very good team who know exactly how to look after him as well.
He certainly is, and he's felt a lot happier, I think, integrating into this Team CSC than he was over previous years when he rode for the US Postal Service. And the man who recommended that he jump ship and come across to Team CSC, in fact, was Bobby Julich. And Bobby Julich, I think, has been very much the confidant of Dave Zabriskie over the last couple of months, and he's brought him and probably suggested to Bjarne Riis that he should be incorporated into the Tour de France team after riding a very difficult Giro d'Italia in support of Ivan Basso.
As we look at these four leads, I'm just wondering what the people at Les Essarts think of the Tour Caravan, which has a couple of kangaroos in it this year, because they're advertising the Jacobs Creek Tour Down Under in Australia, and that's Oppie the kangaroo. These are the four riders out front as they continue on the way, knowing, I think, that it is going now. As we now see the riders go on their way. This is Bedrogi being told. Well, let's have a look at the Tom Boonen profile, which is brought to us by Energizer.
Belgian sensation Tom Boonen is one of the best all-round pro road racers at the moment, and at 24 years of age, He's got quite a good future to look forward to. He began his career on the great US Postal team in 2002, accompanying riders like George Hincapie in the one-day classics. After performing above expectation, he broke his contract with Postal, feeling his opportunities were limited. The next year, he joined the Belgian team Quick-Step. In the next 2 years, he came out of his shell and showed the cycling world he was a force to be reckoned with. Boonen began to win at the international level, but in 2004, at his Tour de France debut, the pretty boy from Belgium racked up 2 very good stage wins. One of them being the last stage in Paris, the most prestigious race a sprinter can take. Now in 2005, the Belgian prodigy is taking his successes to another plateau, having already won 11 victories so far this season. With all those wins under his belt, he's sure to have the confidence he needs to make a statement in France and make his ultimate goal of winning the points competition come true. Because last year he was green with envy, this year he'll strive to be the one wearing the only jersey that matters in the world of sprinters.
Thanks, Paul. That's the Energizer man of the day, and that's Tom Boonen. As we look now at the race again, the kilometres being ticked off very shortly. They're going to have to bring those 3 boys back, get it over and done with, and think about who is going to win this Tour de France. Will it be Tom Boonen, Robin McEwen? Who knows? We'll find out soon, though. See you in a moment. Welcome back. These are the 4 leaders. No change. 15 miles or so to ride. 1:20 now is the gap. The time is going to be up very soon, I think. Thomas Voigtler knows all about the pressure of leading the Tour de France. Now he knows about the pressure of being chased down. 1 minute 16 seconds at the moment is the official time gap coming to us. These are the 4 riders that we're looking at. Voigtler, ex-champion of France, scurrying through here is the Sonia Duval Spanish rider David Cañada. He still looks pretty determined. He looks pretty good too, considering that he spent most of the day out front holding off the field.
Yeah, he's a very seasoned professional. We've actually followed David Cañada's career on a number of occasions, expecting him to burst into the big time as a rider who could possibly finish in the top 10 in the overall classification of the Tour. In fact, I was reading just recently that the team here was thinking of actually using him as a team manager for next year. Now, it's always a bit of a scary moment for a breakaway when you pull back like this, because I'm pretty certain what we're going to see in a few moments' time is the front end of the main field, and it's not too far off. There it is. That, Phil, is around about the 1 minute mark.
But they're just round that corner. We can see them, privilege of the helicopter, but they've already gone over the top of that little rise, so perhaps the peloton don't yet know quite how close they are. But either way, they're not going to make it. They'll be seeing very shortly now the 25 kilometres to go banner. If I was an organiser, I'd be a little bit worried about the run into Les Essarts. A little bit twisty, very difficult. And the sprinters, of course, they will certainly be at the front, raring to go. There's the 25 kilometre banner just ahead.
25 kilometres and around about a 1 minute advantage. And it is a great story, the story of Thomas Voigtler, really. He really rose to the hearts of the French public last year when he wore that yellow jersey for 10 solid days. He's just 25 years of age. He was actually brought up in the island of Guadeloupe. Since then, he moved across to the French continent. He's been a professional since 2000, always been in the team that's been run by Jean-René Bernadotte. And last year, of course, he was, let's not forget, the French national champion.
No, he's a good boy. Got a nice win in the Tour of Luxembourg, that small tour in that lovely Grand Duchy a couple of years ago as well. There we are, there's the peloton, and just around the corner, out of sight as they say, are the 4 leaders. 1 minute 11 seconds is the latest gap now coming to us, so they're going to sweep them up in probably the next 5 or 6 kilometres. A lot of movement in that peloton, Paul. Moves on the far right there as they start to rejuggle the riders at the front. And they're packing the road. This is a very difficult road. You've got to bring your sprinters through that field somehow. Even if you do catch up, this is going to be a very, very precarious finish today. And the riders will probably know it, because the roads don't get much wider all the way to the finish. We'll take a break. The sprinters should have it today. Welcome back. The time is coming when the catch might happen here, and you're going to see it live on OLN because this is the second stage of the Tour de France. We're heading from Chalon to Les Essarts. The 4 leaders now are inside a minute clear of the field, and Dave Zabriskie, the American first-time leader of the Tour de France, is riding right at the front of the peloton. What a sensible man that is. This is a dicey old finish today for these riders. Narrow roads, constantly twisting and turning. These 4 riders are not going to survive much longer, I'm sure of that. But they are trying, because every time we get a look at the face of Thomas Voigtler, he is really trying to keep this group clear. A little bit of a dizzy old turn there on the motorbike as we cut our way through this town, which is a massive crowd here. Listen to the atmosphere. This crowd has been waiting since the route was announced to see the arrival of the Tour in its village. And they're seeing one of the local heroes from Bouygues Telecom, which is based in Les Essarts, Thomas Voigtler, bring them through. The Tour de France, I say it every year, gets more and more popular. It really does capture the imagination of the public. Well, there's plenty of things do capture the imagination of the public, not least in the year 2000, 16 strangers were stranded on a deserted island for 39 days. It changed television forever. Now Survivor lives on OLN. See the first alliances, the first tribal councils, the first betrayals. Watch the first unforgettable season. Grab your torches, head back to camp. Survivor lives on OLN. See it from the beginning, July 24. The first man in yellow in this year's Tour de France, David Zabriskie. He's out there looking for something special. This is the peloton now doing their little piece in front of the same cheering crowd that about 45 seconds ago, less than that now, these 4 riders went through. Voigtler doesn't want this to end, does he?
He doesn't want it to end, but unfortunately the rules of professional cycling are that these guys are going to get caught down towards the end. Lots of communication going on between the two-way radios and the team management. How far behind are they? Well, the information coming to us is it's hovering at 30 seconds. But now, Phil, you can see the impetus has gone out of this leading group of 4. They're going to get caught very soon. That was a nice sign. Yes, yeah. It was. It was happy enjoyment. Enjoy the fates of Thomas.
Enjoy the party, Thomas. And that, of course, is Thomas Voigtler, who is there in the breakaway. He's home here today, and he's going to know a lot of people shouting his name in that crowd. I'm sure of that. The highlight of a Frenchman's cycling career is to ride the Tour de France. An even bigger highlight is to ride in an area where you come from. That'll be the 20 kilometers banner there to go. That's just over 12 miles or so from the line. Unfortunately, when we get to 10 miles to go, around 16 kilometers, we pop over this small climb. It's only 4th category. That's the lowest of the low in the competition. But it does mean the first winner will be the first leader in that King of the Mountains competition.
Main field there just hovering, just looking like a pack of hyenas right now, just waiting to pounce on their prey. They're waiting for the moment when they can go in for the kill. And it certainly is not going to be too far from here. They're also now just under that 12.5 mile, 20 kilometer to go banner.
Yes, there they are. Seconds only have passed by since the 4 leaders went through. They would have liked to have survived, perhaps, until the King of the Mountains at least, so that one could have had a leader's jersey tomorrow. That's the red spotted polka dot jersey for King of the Mountains.
The sad thing is Thomas Voigtler will know exactly where that King of the Mountains point is.
He'd love to wear the jersey.
He would love to. If he was the first man over the top there today, but at least he'd go into tomorrow's stage with the King of the Mountains jersey on his shoulder. The red car has been pulled out. That is one of the referees, and that is a bad sign for a professional bike rider.
You'll probably see a rider look over his shoulder in a minute, because he'll know that there must be very, very close, horrible sign that when the team cars and the official cars move around you. You're inside 30 seconds. Just left a neutral service there at the moment, and one referee as we pull back. There is I nearly said there are the riders, but that's a motorcycle. But the riders are coming up through the trees. So there, it looks a long way all of a sudden, 30 seconds, but it's not far enough today. 35, it's a bonus.
It's a bonus, but they've got 3 kilometers to go to the top of this final climb of the day, or first and final climb of the day, I should say. It's only a 4th category climb, but it will give a few points to the first rider to cross that point on the course and get himself the lead in the King of the Mountains classification. Vukla looking back, looking at the reaction of all the other riders. Cañada's got a fabulous style on his bike, nice and stretched out, looking perfect. He was in fact a very good individual time trialist, and now this is the start of King of the Mountains, so they might just survive here.
Well, let's have a look. There's an attack going now, so they want the King of the Mountains at least before they finally get wiped up. This is now at the front, the AG2R rider, Sylvain Calzati, in his 2nd Tour de France. And one of them could be in a leader's jersey tomorrow, and that would be a huge catch for any of these 4 riders.
Big bonus for these guys, and big payback, because after all, Phil, they've been at the front of the race here for about 130 kilometers, and they're hoping just to survive another kilometer, to at least so that one of them can take home a very nice prize.
Cañada just on 30 years of age, no victories for him, in fact, since the year 2000, so he could do it with picking up the points in the King of the Mountains. These are the tortuous descents. They're going to go down them at around about 60, 65 kilometers an hour. They've got to be very vigilant because they do twist and turn. I always admire our television cameramen as much as I admire the riders here, because they hold these pictures so well.
Well, I tell you what, Phil, they've had a very hard time actually finding a climb on today's route, and this climb is just undulating up towards the final kilometer of it. And these guys, Vukla, of all 4 of them, knows exactly where the finishing line is.
Well, there they are, all 4 of them spreading out, and it's been a call from the race referees to clear all cars out of the gap. A glance over the shoulder there by Calzati. He's wondering just how close can they make the top of the climb beforehand. The Côte du Lac de la Vraie, 4th category climb. Man who wins gets the polka dot jersey tomorrow. It looks to me as though Cañada is poising himself for a kick here. He's sitting just off the back, and there it comes. Heads up, boys, because he's gone. David Cañada at 29, almost 30 years of age. His birthday is, in fact, he is 30 years of age. His birthday has come before the start of the Tour de France. He's now trying to win the polka dot. A reply coming up here too from the AG2R ride, Calzati. Vukla is desperate here to get a jersey. He had yellow for 10 days last year, and he's going to try and make it, but I think they've left it too late. Here he goes, here he goes.
Thomas Vukla has gone. He knows exactly where the summit of this climb is. He used Calzati to absolute and utter perfection. What he's got to do now is try and get onto the slipstream here of Cañada. He's made it. Just a little bit of a breath if you can, recuperate, and then launch the attack.
Well, 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 little Thomas Vukla, the hero of a year ago for 10 days. He has now claimed a jersey for tomorrow. Well done indeed. In fact, Cañada made it too early. Fell from yellow to polka dot. This guy you just can't pin down.
Well, he must have read the handbook last night on how to attack and how to make the counter move, because that was absolute textbook technology. Perfect for Thomas Vukla. And after the yellow jersey of last year, Phil, tonight, look at that. He's going to get the King of the Mountains jersey to boot.
He'd like to smile, but right now it's just a little bit difficult. But his team manager will now be told in the car, make sure that Mr. Vukla reports to the podium at the finishing line as the leader of the King of the Mountains. And that's now, they're just going to wait now. There's no point in racing on. The catch is here. And the big peloton are going to have their big sprint, that's for sure. Well, that was a real interesting race. The 4th category climb normally is not important, but when it's the first one, winner takes all. Rejoin us, the finish is not far away. 14 kilometers left to ride, about 7.5 miles or so. The gap is nothing to speak of, but they haven't caught 3 of them, but they have caught 1 man. Laszlo Bedrogi, moments ago, decided not to go forward on the King of the Mountains, and in fact, we've just seen pictures of him being caught by the peloton. I think we can show you the catch. Let's have a look. This happened about 2 minutes ago. There he is in green as he fell back into that was the attack for the King of the Mountains, finally finished off here by Thomas Vukla, who had to chase down David Cañada. Yellow jersey for 10 days last year. Now he's got the polka dot jersey for 1 day at least. The first leader in the King of the Mountains competition. So that's a first for him as well. Bedrogi back in the field. 3 riders still clear. The order of the top of the climb, by the way, was Vokla, Cañada, Calzati. They're now back together. The peloton still looking at one another, and it's the Française des Jeux team led by the Australians, Bradley McGee, and by Baden Cook, who are now beginning to look very, very strong and very useful here, which is going to be a little bit of a ding-dong, I think, as they start to race down towards the line. It's going to be a tough one, this. Well, if... who are you going to pick, Paul? Because I have to say, today, this is a very, very nervous finish, and a lot of riders will believe they have a chance, and a lot will be very frightened.
It could go any way. Robin McEwen is in good form. Tom Boonen is a good pick. Baden Cook, just in the middle there, you just caught him with his white glasses on, is also looking very attentive. And I've been impressed with Cook. He was very good this year at the Giro d'Italia, despite having a very nasty tumble when he was knocked into the barriers by Paolo Bettini.
The Cofidis boys are very active at the front too. They'll be thinking of Stuart O'Grady. Right in the centre of our picture, the white jersey with the green and gold bands across the centre of it. That is McEwen. Just sitting up off the pedals there, just watching who is moving around him, but not making his move until he has to. Meanwhile, let's not forget the breakaway. They are hanging on. How many times did we see Vokla with his tongue out when he was in the yellow jersey under pressure in the Tour de France last year? Tomorrow he'll have the polka dot jersey on. This is David Cañada, who almost made it. Finished 10th overall last year in the Tour of Switzerland. He is a good all-round bike rider. He's not won a race, in fact, since the year 2000, when he won a time trial, actually, in a race in France called the Circuit de la Sarthe.
Yeah, on that occasion, we really were starting to tip this young man for stardom. He's got a great position on the bike. That's a position of a very good individual time trialist. And in fact, it was at the Tour of Murcia that he actually used the time trial on that occasion to win the overall classification back in the year 2000. But since then, Phil, he really never has got himself back up to the top of the sport as he did in that season.
Well, it happens, pro since 1996, and he's only won 5 times. Now the peloton working away. The boys with the red flashes, they're the Cofidis riders. They're looking to help Stuart O'Grady get into a good position at the front. The boys in the white on the left, they're the FDJ. They want to position Baden Cook for the win, who isn't far away. Domina Vacanzi are also moving up their riders now as well, and they have a good sprinter on their team too.
Just Cedric Vasseur on the front for Team Cofidis, and he's just setting the tempo at the moment. Nice little move there. That was Ivan Basso just pushing Dave Zabriskie up, saying, come on, Dave, keep at the front. Don't let's get swamped just yet by the sprinters.
Isn't that amazing? A man who finished 3rd in the Tour de France last year, helping Dave to make sure, guide him into the right places.
Well, that's exactly what George Hincapie said about Lance Armstrong in the Dauphiné Libre races. I couldn't believe it. Lance was riding alongside me. He was riding as the team helper, and he actually seemed to be enjoying it.
Yes, but there's so many close friends on the teams as well, and they all share the prize money, by the way, because whoever wins it, it doesn't really matter. You are a team. It all goes in the hat for equal shares, and of course the actual winner of the Tour de France, by tradition, never takes a penny out of this race. He becomes a millionaire in other ways. All that money the team have worked for to get the win on the team, they all share in the spoils after the race.
Or in the case of Lance Armstrong, a multi-millionaire.
Absolutely right, yes. But there is the crowd. And what a great crowd it's been all of the way as we're racing in now towards the finish. We're going to see 5 kilometres to go. I think it is very shortly. As the car's beginning to move away, it's looking now like very much the beginning of the end. Well, this summer it's all about appearance, tenderness and taste at the All-Star Barbecue Showdown. 8 barbecue pros travel to 8 towns to compete against top amateur grillers for cash and the coveted All-Star title. From the rub to ribs, who will make it to the final showdown? It's OLN's sizzling new series, the All-Star Barbecue Showdown, premiering this July only on OLN, of course. These are the leaders here, and I think we'll take a short break. But no, we're not going to take a break. We're going to take you through now. So as we watch the leaders, it can't be long before the catch. And there's that little tongue again. And there is, I'm not sure what banner we're up to now, Paul. It's 10 to go. Right. Lost track of the banners now. 10k or 6 miles to the finish, and the peloton in angry mood. These boys won't give up, and I take my hat off to them.
They haven't given up. They're holding on to 23 seconds advantage, and that's not very much at all. That is basically a kick of acceleration from the front end of the main field. This has been a great resistance, and this is a good move from Rabobank, a good sort of move you would expect from a man by the name of Eric Decker, and that is Eric Decker.
They do have a couple of sprinters on the team, but Decker is an opportunist. His great year came a couple of years ago. He won 3 stages of the Tour de France. He won in the sprint, he won alone, and he won in a long breakaway. And he's going again. Former champion of the Netherlands.
Great bike rider. This man has certainly been at the top of his sport for the last few years. A couple of years ago, he won himself 3 stages in the Tour de France in very different manners. Once in the sprint, once in a breakaway, and once in the lone breakaway. But since then, he's had a very dramatic accident. Broke his leg in Milan-San Remo a couple of years ago. And in fact, he found it easier to ride his bike initially than to actually walk.
That's absolutely true. I remember we used to watch him finish, and he could hardly step off his bicycle. People had to carry him away on their shoulders. Get on the bike, you'd have thought there was nothing wrong. And this is Carlos de Cruz with him. Now, he's on the Stage2 team. He won't go round him because he's not the man to win the stage. He won't work with Eric Decker, which is bad luck for Decker. You see his arm go there. He's calling him through to give him a hand. He won't go because he's got Baden Cook on his team back in the bunch, and Cook is the favourite.
Well, that's obvious. You see, when you look at that move there by Carlos de Cruz, you know that what's happening today in this group is they are thinking about one man. They're thinking about Baden Cook. There is the peloton.
Ouch.
All over the main road behind and halfway across. In fact, that's not really looking like it's going to succeed there for Eric Decker, because they're only about 50 metres in front of the peloton.
Well, he's carrying a passenger. Decker has a problem, of course. If he continues on, he won't continue on now. He's going to get caught in. He keeps trying like this. Then Carlos de Cruz would sprint round him and win the stage. That's the look of the jungle, and that's the way it goes. Here comes the peloton racing right up behind him. The team of Tom Bonan shutting it down as we continue to storm into the area of Les Essarts, and the day is nearly done, and the big prize awaits the man who wins, but they still have not got those 3 leaders.
They still haven't got them. They are holding on by the slimmest of margins at the moment, by around about 20 seconds, but they have not given up. Sonia Duval on the front there. You can see that still David Cañada surviving. Right behind him is Thomas Vukler. Behind him is Sylvain Calzati, and these men are taking all kinds of risks on the descent, and you can imagine just how dangerous it's going to be in the front end of the main field.
Well, they are not going to go down without the maximum of fight, these 3 riders. They are still hoping they can survive to the finish. You never know what might happen back in that peloton. As they drive on now towards the line, David Cañada seems to be the strong man. Vokler is still there, of course. Calzati is still there, who won the Tour de l'Avenir last year, which is a major race victory, especially for a man from France. But that's close, that's very close now.
13 seconds, 1-3 seconds, and the front end of the main field now is changing to a little shade of blue and grey, and that is the team of Tom Bonan. That's the team of Quick-Step. Cedric Vasseur very close to the front end of the main field. There's Matty White over there. You recognise him because he's gritting his teeth. And there is Stuart O'Grady in the middle. I discounted Stuart O'Grady a little earlier, but you know, you should never discount O'Grady. He is such a talented bike rider. He's not as fast as McEwen or Tom Bonan, but he's clever.
He is very, very clever, and so many of these bike riders, when people tell me, they say, well, look, they're all riding along in a big bunch, they never break away. Every one of these is an individual working unit who is thinking and planning, laying a strategy all of the time. There's Zabriskie now, wisely trying to get out of trouble and move up on the outside. I'll tell you what, the old heart rates are moving up a little bit now. 167 beats the minute for Algar, for Don Nardello, 155, 56 for Patrice Algan. Still pretty low, I think, considering the excitement. Here comes the catch. Voigtler sat up on the left, shaking of the hands. All rivals but friends when they race against the common enemy. Now we have 189 riders all going for the win.
189 riders all together for the first time since the 25th kilometre of today's stage. These guys tried to survive the little shake of the hands there. Well, you know, it was good try. We tried it. We didn't succeed on this occasion, but maybe we'll have another go tomorrow. Now it's going to be very nervous at the front end of this main field. The sprinters will take incredible risks because it is so important on the very first day to try and get a win under the belt. And look how close to the front Lance Armstrong is there in the green jersey. He sticks out like a sore thumb here this afternoon, and he's not staying very far away from the front.
There is no doubt now, this is a battle of the sprinters. So the riders now are working out where are the sprinters. They're going to look around for them. Watch out for the riders as well who can win this race. Men like Tom Bonan, and of course the riders. Robbie McEwen is the man too. These are the men now we can expect to see as they cross swords for what they love doing most, sprinting for the win.
Quick step of trying to get Tom Bonan up there.
Well, there's the peloton as they continue. Hey, look at this now. George Hincapie almost looking as though he wants to lead Lance Armstrong out for the win. Surely not. Well, this is unbelievable now as we come into the last few kilometres of the day. So the riders pass under 5 kilometres to go. Borghi Telecom will not lie down, Paul. They are going home.
They want it. They want this win so badly here this afternoon. They want to outfox and outsprint the sprinters if they can. But it's going to be very difficult, Phil, because the sprinters have got a real tightrope on the front of this main field. They've got control of this race for the moment as we've gone under their 5 kilometres to go. 3 miles of racing, 6 minutes to the conclusion of the first open road stage of this year's Tour.
My goodness me, this is going to be a nervous finish now. That road is not very, very wide to bring sprinters through at a big thing, and it looks as though this is Beneteau. Well, we should have guessed that. Walter lives in town. Mum and Dad will be at the finish line. This is a huge effort by Walter Beneteau. Best placed Frenchman yesterday in the time trial, and now looking for the victory here. He has only won 3 races in his life, but this would go down, and he would keep this as #1 forever. He races on, 4 kilometres to go.
The crowd here are going absolutely ballistic because they're actually watching this on a big screen just at around about 200 or 300 meters to go. They know this boy is the hometown boy. They know he wants to win. They know it's almost impossible, but if they could blow on his back and just help him survive off the front end of this chasing peloton, that is what they are all doing. But Phil, the organization has now appeared. Française des Jeux are trying to set it up for Baden Cook.
They've put all of the riders there now. Rest assured, the last of those white jerseys in that long line is the Australian Baden Cook. He will be the last to be slung at the finish. Here's Beneteau trying to hold off 188 men in the Tour de France. Those legs are beginning to fold beneath him now as the charge goes on the left. Move as far away as possible. Make him work in the wind. That's what they're thinking. Gone through on his inside. Beneteau's move is over.
It's over. It was a good try. It got the home crowd just a little bit excited there as Française des Jeux get themselves organized on the front end of the main field. They are doing a brilliant job here. This is Carlos de Cruz on the front. At the back of the line, though, is going to be Baden Cook. This is the moment when you dare not put your hands anywhere near the brake levers, because if you do and you touch them, you shoot back down through that field and lose 25 or 30 places.
Just look in the heart of the peloton here. People are dashing in every direction, trying to find a hole in the bunch to make it go. 3 kilometres from the line now. I can see Alexander Vinokurov, low picture, wisely staying out of this one. He's not going to get mixed up with the sprinters. This is now their domain. These men are a very different species to the riders who win overall the Tour de France.
Completely different breed, the sprinter. When it comes down to the final 50 meters, they shut off their brains. They just live on instinct. All they want to do is react. Look at the riders, though, from Française des Jeux. They are burying themselves. They're turning themselves inside out. They're thinking of one thing. I've got to do an extra meter, an extra 5 meters, maybe 10 meters to try and keep Baden Cook in with a chance of winning. And in the meantime, there's a battle in the group behind. Everybody's looking for the wheel of another sprinter to try and take advantage of his launch when it starts to speed up to the line.
Well, this is a rider, Saunier Duval. I think it's Nicolas Fitch, the Frenchman, who's trying to get away from the front. Again, they're all massing, and he's got a little bit of a gap. You can't control everyone, and in fact, Française des Jeux wants somebody else to come and pick up the pace now. So this sort of arguing amongst yourselves can give you a surprise result at 2 kilometres to go.
Looks like Phonak moving up there. No, it's Liquigas moving up there on the right-hand side, trying to keep themselves nice and organised, making sure that it's not very difficult. It's Zabala, the man from Saunier Duval, who got off the front, but now that has completely disappeared, Phil, because he's going to get wiped away with this, and it seems too as if Française des Jeux have lost control control.
They have. They've been swept here by leaky gas. And remember, we've got the big speed rider in here, Magnus Bagstedt, who is another bad finish himself, and Luciano Pagliarini, who we've seen in different team colours ride well in the Tour de Langkawi in Malaysia. He wants to get a grip of the Tour de France too, but look at the rush now. The right-hand side has it with leaky gas on the front, but here comes the rush up the inside. It's all beginning to change again, and when we get to the kite at 1 to go, it is going to be one sprint for the line as they try to bring Tom Boonen up through on the rails.
And now you've got the team of Lotto, Robbie McEwen's team. There's Leon van Bon moving up into about 3rd or 4th position. Everyone now starting to panic inside the final kilometre. This is the moment when you have to take all kinds of risks. If you slip back now, there is no second chance. You've got to look out for Brad McGee. A quick flick there as we go across to the left-hand side. It looks like the left-hand side is leaky gas trying to lift it all up, but Tom Boonen's stuck there right in the middle.
That's Maggie Bagstedt, the Swedish rider, who's got the front now, who's trying to look for his Pagliarini, his teammate, but as they start to swing back, has made a mistake there. And now here comes the lead out for Tom Boonen. Young Kerseypoo's getting into the mix too. He's sitting there round the corner in 4th wheel. This could be a very... Robert Foster is there too in 2nd wheel. And Baden Cook is the white jersey, bouncing a little bit off the shoulders as they swing up to the home stage. Foster goes on the far right here. And now this is going to be a big run. Robbie McEwen is coming on the rails. Robbie McEwen is opening up the sprint. Tom Boonen is trying to get over the top of him. As they come up to the line, it's Boonen and McEwen, and Tom gets it. What a finish.
Tom Boonen was in the ideal position there. He was perfectly set up by his teammate. He was doing a magnificent job there. McEwen thought he'd got it, went a little bit too early, took the advantage, but the rest of the main field comes in with exactly the same time. But Tom Boonen, there's the yellow jersey coming across there nice and safely. No problems at all for Dave Zabriskie. But Tom Boonen, despite the toothache he complained about overnight, Phil, came out today with very sharp teeth.
What a sprint. The two top sprinters of years gone by. There they are. Mano a mano, shoulder to shoulder. But Boonen, much the bigger, bulkier man, seemed to have the power this time. Alan Davis off to the right there, another Australian up amongst the leaders as well. But that was one big win. Yes, Tom, you do look pretty happy.
He looks very happy indeed. They set him up for what will be his 12th win of the season. Let's just have another quick look at there. McEwen started charging down the right-hand side there, but all of a sudden, almost like Alessandro Patacchi, with the incredible power that he's nurtured over the last couple of seasons, it was a cruise to the line for Tom Boonen, just ahead of Robbie McEwen in 3rd place.
Well, what a superb sprint. I thought McEwen had it here on the left, but Boonen saw that finishing line, kicking on those pedals, stamping on with those big legs. And he has turned out one big result. His 12th win of the year, and his first since he won a stage in the Tour of Belgium in May. And I don't think he's raced much since then, if at all. He's certainly back now. We'll take a break. Let me also remind you in our special post-race programme later, we'll have Sheryl Crow talking on the set. Don't miss that either. We'll be back. Welcome back. The town of Les Essarts has seen a brilliant sprint, and in the victory is Tom Boonen. Well, the stage results, Tom Boonen getting the victory. Don't forget today, he was in the saddle for the nearly 4 hours. Tor Hushoft, good pick there in 2nd place. McEwen slipped away on the photo finish, in fact, crossing the line in 3rd. And a good ride by the Australian Stuart O'Grady. I don't think Baden Cook will be too happy with his 9th place. He got sandwiched out of it towards the end. There was a crash in the last kilometre or so as well. It was off camera. Alan Davis making 10th. The only South African in the race, and a sprinter too, Robbie Hunter, he got the 12th position. Completing top 15 was the Domina Vacanzi sprinter Antelo Furlan. These results we're now getting, of course, Jan Ulrich finishing 19th, which isn't bad for a rider. So this has been a superb... Yes, this has been a superb race today, and I have to say that Tom Boonen has shown a fabulous clean pair of wheels, Paul.
He certainly did, a perfectly timed sprint. Robbie McEwen maybe panicking just a bit because it was the first sprint of the Tour this year, but I think at the end of the day, McEwen led out ideally Tom Boonen, and Tom Boonen came right over the top there, exhibiting an incredible amount of power.
Win number 12 for him, of course, and his last victory was back in May. Yes, it was, when he was winning a stage in the Tour of Belgium. But Tom Bonen, you know, everybody talked about him. Robbie McEwen is the sort of rider who really read this ride, as usually comes out from nowhere when he's sprinting, does Robbie McEwen, and he has to take on a man who beat him. Little bit surprised that towards the end he really did tire too, so maybe he's not quite ready for the big sprint just yet. Might take a day or two to warm up to the occasion.
Just a little bit of a tactical error, I think, but let's not forget a couple of riders in this race, like Tom Bonen, like Robbie McEwen, have not really raced very much over the last couple of months, and it takes a while to get the edge, and the first sprint of the Tour de France is always a nervous one for a sprinter. You really try maybe just that bit too hard to try and get the first win of the day.
Well, there we are, the beauty of Les Essarts, the Vendée. The sun is still out, the wind is gentle. It was a slightly headwind sprint, but I don't think it made too much difference, though it might have damaged McEwen's chances because it was an uphill sprint finish and Robbie didn't read it quite to his usual perfection. Well, there he is. He's being interviewed down there, but he'll be speaking his own language. It's his Flemish, because he's a Belgian rider, and he's coming very quickly to be the top Belgian rider on the current racing circuit. Third career Tour de France stage win. Yes, indeed it is, because he got 2 last year, and he's only ridden the Tour twice. This is his second year, but this year he's made it quite clear he wants to try and win the green jersey, which has been the property of the Australians for the past 3 years. So, as we look there at Tom Bonen, I can tell you now that Al and Bob, well, they've got a very special guest on the set tonight. They're with Sheryl Crow, and I wonder what she thinks of Lance's riding over the last 2 days of the Tour de France. You can find out along with us later on tonight on the special show, and I think we can now pick up Al Troutwig talking with Sheryl. Is that right? Are you there, Al?
Absolutely, and that officially makes it a special show with Bob Roll, of course. Sheryl, where do you watch? How do you watch a stage like this?
Today, I got to ride in the car with Bernard Hinault.
Which is the coolest thing.
The coolest. And I don't speak any French, unfortunately. But it was nice that I had somebody that could interpret, and he was giving me the whole strategic. Now, if I was racing, our team would be on the right instead of the left, like CSE was today, and because that means the guys behind would really be taking the wind. And it was great. It was fun.
What have you learned about stage racing, like, for example, how Discovery should handle today as far as Lance is concerned?
Well, I'm going to have a little meeting with Johan after the race.
And he will be listening.
Yeah, exactly. I think if he isn't sick of being by now. But no, he's been amazing. He's really let me ask him 1,000 questions, and it's such a cool sport. You know, you can pretty much count on at least what I've learned on these first early days as being the big sprint days. And I was just watching the end of it saying, where's Lance, where's Lance? And the idea that they kind of float to the back and get out of the way of the young sprinters like Bonen and McEwen and O'Grady.
Let the chaos happen
away
from
the chaos, the quacking.
Are you going to, the quacking, yeah.
No, I've got all the lingo.
I know, I was going to say, you should join us in the booth. You know as much about the sport as anybody now. You follow it for a long time. Has it been fun?
I'm hoping if my record doesn't take off that I'm going to that you guys are going to let me have a job at OLN.
I don't think there's any chance of that.
Hey, did you and Lance have a chance to talk about him wearing the green jersey and the weirdness of that?
Yeah, but I'm not going to tell you what he said.
Not in love with the idea?
I don't want to insult the French,
green jersey?
No, you know. Actually, it was kind of cool today because it was, I think you guys have it on film. I got to stand up out of the car through the moonroof, and I could spot him so easily with the green jersey and the dark shorts. So, but I think he's ready to get back into the Discovery or the yellow jersey.
Can you compare his persona? Because he said he was nervous last year, but this year he's free and easy. Can you compare your tangible feel for what he's like just to be around?
I got to tell you, I ran back to the room yesterday to get a jacket, and before the prologue, and he was blasting Led Zeppelin. So I knew we were in pretty good shape. And he's really relaxed. I think he's in the best shape I've ever seen him, and I've only known him for a year and 8 months, but feels different this year. And I definitely think I think he's really conscious that this is going to be his last competitive experience with some guys he's known since he was 15. And there's kind of a bittersweetness to that. You know, we were talking about trying to get a really great picture of him and Ulrich, and I don't know if there is a better picture of the two of them holding hands during that race. I guess maybe it was 3 years ago.
Yeah.
But I think he's going to really miss the good, healthy competition with some of these guys he's known for really, and particularly his teammates. Like Georgie's known since he was 14. So.
What was it like yesterday for you? It started with the thumbs up, which I think forced Lance to lose the grip on his pedal.
I know.
I'm going to blame you for that.
Oh, man. That's the first thing I asked Al. I'm not kidding. I was like, is it my fault?
What was it like, and what did he have to say about the experience of doing in that time trial, what he had to do to make the statement that he did?
He calls me after every race, and as soon as I answer my phone, he said, how do you like me now? So, and you know what? When I got him on the phone, I said, God, I can't believe you pulled your foot out. And were you really shaking? And he's like, nah. So whether he really was shaking or he wasn't shaking, I'll never know that, but
passing Ulrich was just
that
off the
moment
charts.
right there was just really an unbelievable. And my heart went out to Ulrich. I know he has to
Cheryl,
be sore.
You've had a fabulous career of putting words on paper that sort of try and make sense out of life from time to time. What would it be like if you knew you were going into the studio for the last time to record a song?
It would be hard for me because so much of my life experience is tied into every word I've written, and I know with Lance. I see some of those early pictures that are in print and Outside Magazine, all these different magazines, the Sports Illustrated, riding a bike when he's 9 years old, and so much of his life, his identity, I think even his self-worth is tied in to the accomplishments he's had through cycling. And every time we've been anywhere this year, particularly Nice, so much of his wonderful memories are tied into the traveling and just the whole cycling lifestyle. But I think the reality of being a retired cyclist is he's not going to really understand it until we get home.
You're going to come back a few times?
Oh, yeah.
During the tour? Okay.
Oh, yeah, definitely, for
Was
sure.
he joking about being your guitar tech for the future?
I don't care if he's joking or not. He's going to be.
Oh, okay. Cheryl, thanks for the visit.
Thanks, you guys.
All right, that's Cheryl Crow with a little Lance Armstrong perspective. Let's talk about the general classification in today's race. The yellow jersey, David Zabriskie is going to hold on to his yellow jersey here on Main Street in Les Azars.
David Zabriskie, 26 years old, first tour. If you got to start the tour, this is the best way to do it. What a thrill, day in and day out. I don't think you'll ever get used to this feeling, no matter how many times it happens, putting on the yellow jersey in front of the huge French populace that have packed around the awards podium here in the 2005 tour. Dave Zabriskie, great effort, a beautiful ride by their team, didn't let the breakaway get too far up the road. The sprinters teams chased them down in the finale. There was a dangerous man in that break, Laszlo Bodrugi, who sits in 5th place on GC, but CSE, great job for Zabriskie.
Well, there's nothing like hearing that famous flourish of Tour de France music and then hearing your name right after that. David Zabriskie from Utah in his very first Tour de France, only the 3rd American ever to wear Le Maillot Jaune, wears it a 2nd straight day. Lance Armstrong remains where he was yesterday.
3rd place, Laszlo Bodrugi, moving up a couple of slots in front of Vinokurov and George Hincapie.
And George Hincapie remains right there, Lance's top lieutenant. We go top 10, Floyd Landis in 6th place. He didn't hurt himself today. Fabian Cancellara, Jan Ulrich in 8th, Jens Voigt from CSC in 9th, and Vladimir Karpats in 10th. Some of the key names, the big rivals, are missing from the top 10 still. So it's a flat stage for the sprinters, and that's the way it came out. Bonin with the stage win. We'll be back with more after this. We're back live on OLN, coverage of Stage 2 of the Tour de France. Chalon to Les Azars now in the books. Bonin the stage wins. Zabriskie maintains the yellow jersey. Lance Armstrong still right there, 2 seconds back. We're joined now by the president of USA Cycling, Jim Akowitz, who also is very, very busy with the tour and making sure everybody gets to where they have to be. What's your take so far on what we've seen?
Well, I think we're off to a pretty good start.
I would say.
At least in terms of the USA Cycling, when you're looking at 2 Americans, 1-2 in the Tour de France on the opening prologue stage. Great place to be. And actually, last night I was going over the results with some friends on some other teams, and they were actually quite surprised. We went down the list, and there were 4 Americans in the top 11. I mean, that's just unbelievable.
As you circulated, Jim, with these other teams and getting all the opinions that you got, were there people that were really blown away by what Lance did yesterday?
I think everybody was. I don't think it was just anybody. It was everybody. I don't think anybody expected that kind of a time gap to be had in a prologue of that distance.
You know, it just felt like that time wasn't meant to be caught yesterday, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
How about Dave Zabriskie?
They're big surprise.
Coming out of Utah, big surprise.
Big surprise. You know, great young rider, and he's won 3 big stage race time trials now, in the Giro and last year's Tour of Spain, and now the Tour de France. So you've got a kid that really knows how to do it in that environment.
What type of evolution have you seen since we started not that long ago?
What are you talking about? It's black and white footage.
That's true.
In the 100-year history, it's not that long, geologically speaking.
A lot of changes.
Right.
You know, of course, the biggest changes has been Lance in the program, and the great things that he's done here over the last, now leading into the 7th year of this phase of his Tour de France experience. Prior to that, of course, you know, he was in the learning curve, but you know, these last 7 years have just been huge for Lance, huge for USA Cycling, and it's given guys like Dave Zabriskie and a lot of others a new opportunity. And the opportunity that existed when Bob was racing to come to Europe and ride in the Tour de France.
We have some amazing footage, and the tangible evidence is there with the 50 million Livestrong bands and Lance's influence and everything, kids following him through the streets, and the TV commercials that almost look like they just happened without anybody organizing it from an ad agency. Can you tangibly explain what this ride to all these tours have meant to USA Cycling and cycling in the United States?
Well, it's the biggest, I think, jump in terms of visibility and recognition for the sport. And what happens then is that young kids who are exposed to a lot of sports in America, not just cycling, but they're exposed to, you know, the big sports, and cycling is starting to grow and find itself. And it's not unusual for me to find people at work or friends and family that had never really followed cycling before just grasp onto this. They can't miss an OLN show. It's impossible. And it would be off their charts not to see the show every day. So, you know, that didn't exist a few years ago, and that's really something that Lance has made happen.
Let's talk about the next wave, the riders coming after Lance. And it seems like 7 years of almost anyway, 7 years of a real dominating persona in the Tour. That effect is already being felt a little bit in the States, and athletes now starting to come up and maybe have a higher expectation of racing over here.
We have a lot of young riders coming up. It's just we have to give them the exposure. They've got to race in Europe. They've got to race against this competition at a lower level. And we've got a great U23 program that goes on, and we've headquartered in Belgium. We have a foundation with some great people that help support us financially to bring those kids over here and give them the kind of experience they need so that one day they'll be in this peloton.
What's your opinion of this Tour de France that we're going to take this year?
I think it's a good one. It's different than any we've seen before. There aren't a lot of mountaintop finishes. There aren't a lot of time trials. I think that, but I do think there's a lot of climbing in the race nonetheless. It's just on a different platform, a different format. And I've always found the Tour, at least in my case, is to be a little more interesting when you do the Alps and then the Pyrenees.
All right, Jim, thanks. Will you visit us again before the tour is over?
You bet. I'll be back.
All right, Jim Onkowitz, president of USA Cycling. Meanwhile, Lance Armstrong speaking with our Craig Hummer after what happened today in Stage 2.
Looked like it was hot out there today, and you didn't really get the wind that you'd expected. How was the course?
Well, it was pretty nice, actually. It was supposed to be along the sea the whole time, but we never saw the sea. So I have my doubts. But no wind, warmer than it has been, which is nice. Typical first day, everybody nervous, everybody quacking a little bit, and a little crash in the end. It's always Demoulin. He always crashes, so.
Highlight that danger aspect a little bit. Obviously, it always seems to play out this way, that the first few stages, you really have to just protect yourself. How do you and the team set that up before the stage even starts?
Johan assigns a few guys to stay with me in certain parts of the race. So today, for example, we had Pavel and Benjamin stay with me most of the first part of the race, and then at the end, George and Popo took over. You know, in the years past, it would be George and Eki. So we got Popo taking his place right now, and I don't know, man, those finishes, they still scare me. I won't miss those.
Talk a little bit for the average fan. I mean, it's a long stage, like you said, very flat. There's not enough tactically to think about. So what do you guys discuss? I mean, what goes back and forth between the team and the director?
Not much. Just basic information, like, you know, the road turns left in 5 kilometers, and, you know, the wind is, if it is doing anything, it's doing this, that, and the other. And typically on race radio, they'll tell him if there's dangers up the road, narrow road or a narrow bridge or trouble on the pavement or whatever. And so he'll relay that to us. But, you know, if guys need to go back for bottles, they'll say coming back, and he'll move up a bit. But kind of boring. You wouldn't have a great time listening.
Coming off of yesterday's stage, were the legs good today? Feel good?
No, they were terrible. No, they're all right. I feel pretty good. I feel pretty good. I told myself I figured the faster I pedal, the faster I can retire, so I feel good.
All right, thanks.
Thanks.
One question.
Yeah, he's never seen a chain he didn't mind yanking. Now, that's an aspect. If you're not a cycling fan, you watch a stage like this, you really don't get it. Why doesn't Lance go to get the lead and earn something? But the Tour is really about taking all your fuel and making you use every bit. And so really it's just about surviving these miles.
That was a very good explication of the tactics that go into a stage like today. And when you see the work put in by all the teams, you get one winner. Some riders benefit, some riders don't, but Discovery always attentive, and they always keep Lance out of trouble.
Now, Lance did mention a crash. I think there were 3. That's an unofficial count, but here's one, and you just watch. It's like bowling pins. Once somebody goes down in the middle, everybody goes down after that. So it's the job of Discovery, if they can, to keep Lance in front of that potential damage. And you heard him mention somebody by name, and it looks as though they scan the peloton to make sure they keep the potential culprits back there.
That's exactly right. And as you get further and further behind the front line in the peloton, it's more and more risky that a crash like that is going to affect you. Once the rider falls down and the other riders behind him start piling in, because there's no way you can stop. You can't slow the bike down quick enough to avoid that crash. So the further behind you get from the front arrow in the peloton, the more dangerous it becomes. It's a lot of work for the team to keep a rider out there. They have to sit in the wind. Lance's teammates are not sheltered by the peloton. They're out in the wind doing almost a separate lead out that the sprinters teams are doing. That's just to keep Lance out of trouble. And if you want to have a chance to win the Tour, you cannot be 3/4 of the way back. You will eventually get caught behind one of those crashes.
Let's get back to the story of David Zabriskie wearing the yellow jersey once again. He was almost bashful yesterday. Today he said it was a little stressful being asked all those questions. Well, now he's going to get asked those questions again. Here he is with Frankie Andreu.
David, your first day in the yellow jersey, riding up front right behind your team, how did that feel?
At first I was just kind of like, oh my God, but as the day went on, it was exciting, a happy, good feeling. It's unbelievable how many people there are on the roads. I could only find one place to go to the bathroom throughout the whole day, and I took it.
Big difference from the Tour de France to the Giro?
Yeah, of course. It's a gigantic difference.
Saw you saying a few words with Lance Armstrong. Care to share a little bit what he said, a little of encouragement, some congratulations, or any advice?
He gave me a tip. He said never go more than 20 guys back. And I said, okay.
A lot of people talk about the finishes being kind of crazy and the nervous of the first day. How was it for you today?
Yeah, it's nervous for me, for everybody there. It's, but I think it was with this on my shoulders. It's an experience I've never had. There was so much respect given to me from everybody. It was something I've never felt before.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Well, yesterday we found out he slept in the buff. Today we found out about his problems with comfort at the side of the road. He seems like maybe he's slowly getting used to it, but boy, he's not comfortable wearing that jersey.
He seems to be a little bit nervous, but he's handled it very well on the stage today. He did a great job staying in the front, just like Lance told him he should do, and keeps the jersey for another day.
All right, lots more to come in our post-race coverage here on OLN. Stage 2 is in the books. David Zabriskie wears the yellow jersey. Tom Bonin, true to his reputation, the man to sprint to the finish line first. Phil and Paul after this.
Welcome back, and the day 2 of the Tour de France is over and done. The sprinters got it in the end, and what a great sprint it was. We really did see one of those swashbuckling finishes that we love to see in the Tour de France, and we're always happy, I think, when everybody arrives safely. Lance Armstrong there blaming Samuel Dumoulin for that little shunt towards the end. He says some hard words, Lance, doesn't he?
In every era of the sport, you know, somebody always gets blamed for the crashes. Even going back to my era, we used to blame a Frenchman by the name of Francis Castin. So you don't earn that reputation without good cause.
No, well, let's have a look at the day's winner, because it was a great spin. Let's have a look at it just this one more time. Boonen came out of the shadow of Robbie McEwen. McEwen must have thought at this point he got it, but look at the power of Tom Boonen driving it home, hitting the line, and in the end a clear winner. And in fact, Robbie dropping back into third place, as we can now look at the stage results brought to us by Pacific Life. Boonen winning today just under 4 hours ahead of Tor Hushoff. Robbie McEwen in third. Great finish by Stuart O'Grady as well, and Luciano Pagliarini trying here to get the stage win, but having to be content with 5th at the moment. I think Pagliarini, though, he's trained for the Tour de France this year. I think he might do something a little bit later on. Now, we're particularly happy for France, particularly, and for Thomas Vogler in particular, because this man led the Tour for 10 days last year. Look at this, Paul.
This was basically taken straight out of the handbook of racing tactics. There was a last-minute burst there by the man in the yellow, and that was David Cañada. Vogler waited to the last possible moment, came onto the wheel of David Cañada, took a couple of breaths, and then accelerated straight by him. He did have the advantage, though, Phil, of a little bit of local knowledge to get himself maximum points there at the top of that very small King of the Mountains. But look at this. This is the overall classification brought to us by Foster's. Dave Zabriskie is still the American at the top of the leaderboard, ahead of another American by the name of Lance Armstrong, 2 seconds in arrears.
Yeah, Bedrogi's moved up into 3rd, but look at that. George Hincap is still in the top 5. He's been there before at this stage of the Tour de France, but he might stay there a bit longer this time, because George, he showed us last year, is a very different bike rider now. Well, we've got lots more to come, of course. We'll take another quick break, and then we'll talk about the prediction. I don't think I better talk about that, but I shall look forward to welcoming you back in just a moment. There's Zabriskie in yellow again. See you in just now.
Welcome back to the Tour de France on OLN. It's a funny thing. The moment one stage is over, you immediately start thinking about the next stage. But today, Chelan to Les Isards goes to Tom Bonin. David Zabriskie remains in yellow. Al Trowick along with Bob Roll. We have our own little competition here. Now, it's called officially the Saab Performance Prediction, which is just a fancy name for the Yellow Jersey General Classification. Let's update the standings. We can only think that peaking too early is never good in the Tour de France, but that's exactly what Phil Liggett has done. He has picked the first 2 winners of the stage. So he's got 10 points. I've got 6, thanks to Thor Hushoff. Bob Roll's got 1. Paul, not good. But again, the mountains are everything, aren't they, Paul?
Well, it's nothing to worry about, actually. I'm just looking at that, and I think that Phil and I have actually got the overall classification surrounded. And the truth of the matter is, I didn't want to tell anybody this, but I'm actually feeding Phil the information.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I'm taking 2 days off commentary now, Al, because I've got to study form. This is pressure, boy.
Those pack sprints, though, come on, they're impossible to predict. But good job. Congratulations. We'll give you your yellow jersey tomorrow. Meanwhile, as I mentioned, we immediately look forward to stage 3. Here we go. 212 kilometers, or about 130 miles, right smack dab into the middle of the Loire Valley to Tours on the Loire River.
Moving away from the coast now. This is going to be a nice little stage. Very similar to today's stage, probably. It's another day for the sprinters, and we go for a long stage through the Loire Valley, mostly flat, and to Tours, a beautiful town with a lot of cycling history.
And as Lance said, it's the kind of stage where he wants to do exactly what he did today. Just get through it, no big problems. 212.5 kilometers, that's tomorrow at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time, 5:30 on the Pacific Coast. Expanded coverage in primetime every night of the 2005 Tour de France. That's stage 3 tomorrow on the home of the Tour. Some of the images from this long day of 180 kilometers that says goodbye to the Vendée. Fan support was huge for Thomas Vogler. He took it to the lead, but couldn't hold on. Our OLN team is outfitted by LL Bean. Go to llbean.com. And a reminder for everything about the tour, for more information about our tour coverage, go to olntv.com. With Kirsten Gum, Craig Hummer, Frankie Andreu, Paul Sherwin, Phil Liggett, and my partner up here, Bob Roll, Al Trowick, saying thanks for joining us. Tom Bonin wins the stage, but the American, David Zabriskie, remains in yellow. Lance does exactly what he has to do to move on in this Tour de France in an attempt to make it 7 in a row. See you tomorrow.